for instance? I mean, should Australians be prepared for having their faces scanned to use social media?
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight we have a special guest who needs no introduction. Wade Northausen, how are you?
Yeah, g'day, Leon, and how are you, mate? And a big hello to everybody who's watching.
Now, Wade, starting off with some not such great news. Unfortunately, in today's news, we have news about an increased spike in deaths in young people related to turbo cancer, such as bowel cancer. And in this particular story, it's reporting that a Sydney mum, 35, died from bowel cancer as Aussie rates spike in young people. Now, this young mother right here was diagnosed with bowel cancer 6 months ago. So that indicates to me that was a turbo cancer. So she was dead, unfortunately, within 6 months of being diagnosed with this. And this article is saying that there's a sudden rise, a sudden spike in young people. What do you think that could be? What is behind this sudden spike? Any guesses from your end, Wade?
Well, I'm no rocket scientist, as you understand, Leon, but studying things as we do and being involved with all the COVID stuff and all the shots as we do and talking to as many doctors and medical experts as what we do, it is absolutely crystal clear. You know, it's and the I don't know, not sad thing, the horrendous thing is that, you know, if we listen to some of the medical experts back in 2020 who were shut down by the social media, the mainstream media called them conspiracy theorists and whack jobs. Now, a lot of these medical experts were saying that this very thing was going to happen from these biological weapons that have been injected into everybody. So it's absolutely no surprise that it's the so-called COVID vaccines that are doing this. There's many people back then in 2020 said that was their purpose, is to cause people, and these are the biologists and the chemists who said the makeup of this so-called vaccine, the mechanics of it, this is going to be one of the major problems that comes ahead from people getting this filthy stinking jab. You know, we remember all these fleabag politicians and all these other people who are in the media going, oh, it's safe and effective, and you know, if you don't get it, you should be left to die and all this sort of thing. I think it's safe to say that the chickens are certainly coming home to roost. And, I just saw a thing the other day, Leon, some study in England or some other piece of crap like that was saying that there seems to be a lot of young English people who are all of a sudden dying from heart attacks. But then they came up with some big study to say, but this is because of the massive increase in smoking.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, they're not stopping. They're continuing. Yes, and I think any doctor or university or whatever that is still pushing this stuff should be jailed forever. And I mean, I think that, and in the recent events where in Australia we've just seen something pass the Parliament where they talk about mandatory jail sentences. I think that should be applied to these medical people who are continuing to lie to the Australian people and continuing to give them injections that they know have a very big chance of killing them. And then they're covering it up.
I want to also, when I actually tweeted about this story, this news story, and a young woman, age 40, responded to my tweet, and she wrote this following. She wrote, "I'm 40. I was diagnosed with bowel cancer 2 weeks ago. My 26-year-old sister-in-law and workmate, the same age, who's also 26, was diagnosed with breast cancer, and my son's 18-year-old mate was given 12 months to live due to a testicular cancer." And she's saying that the common denominator with all of these cases, including her case, was that they all had the COVID vaccine.
Yep. And look, I think for people such as you and I, we know this stuff absolutely, categorically point blank. The medical experts that we talk to regularly are telling us this. We're hearing stories like this. But, I think, Leon, we really need people such as yourself and myself, and everybody else. We need to pump this as hard as we can. We need to make this, the main topic of concern, or one of them anyway. And I think, we see a lot of people saying, oh, you shouldn't be spreading fear and all this other idiotic crap. Well, the bottom line is people are dying, and they're dying every day. And more of them, this is happening to them. So therefore, we need to push this as hard as we possibly can, because I'm telling you now, we are being successful. In the more we push this, the more people are starting to understand what's happening. And the thing is, they're going to be coming back to do it again. So yeah, I think Trump that,
Sorry, you're going to say, Wade? There's a bit of a delay, so it makes it hard.
Yeah, no. I was just going to say a couple of quick things there, but I think that Trump is, one of the big news stories of the minute going around globally. He's certainly doing a lot of great, terrific things, and I'll throw it to you to say what you were going to say, and then we'll respond, Leon.
Now, I can be corrected on this. I think initially people were saying that Trump was going to sign an executive order to ban all COVID vaccines, but my understanding is he's actually signed an executive order banning COVID-19 vaccine mandates in schools that receive federal funding. So that's quite big in itself. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think we'll see something similar in Australia?
That's a great question. There's lots and lots of people are talking about all sorts of things that Trump's doing and expecting that then to flow on to Australia. So I think there's some really terrific things happening that should flow on from Trump. I'll say in the first instance, we should not just go a little bit quiet now and rely on Trump to fix things for us. we need to keep in the fight ourselves as hard as we possibly can. But if what he's talking about with investigating all the US aid and all this sort of thing, election interference, all the big corporates, all the big pharmaceutical companies, then that's going to be a very, very big net. I hope that in this particular circumstance, we've got a different setup with the United States Department of Justice. You know, he had an attorney general that came in during his last presidency, who we all thought was going to kick some really big goals, and turned out to be just a pathetic, weak, just nothing. So that was Bill Barr. So I think now, when you look at the Trump team, and I don't use the term very often, it's exciting, you know what I mean? I just don't sort of say that kind of thing. But I think if we can, say, well, I think we're in with a chance, okay? We're not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I think he's got some really, really great talent there. And if ever they're going to pull themselves out of this, then I do believe that the time is now. It's as good as it's ever going to be for the US.
And what caught me by surprise, I mean, he's obviously, Bobby Kennedy was recently confirmed by the Congress as the new health secretary, which is great news. Kash Patel was recently confirmed as the FBI director. But what really threw me off the chair and got me by surprise was Dan Bongino, nominated and as deputy director of the FBI. That is phenomenal.
Absolutely. Yes, it is. But I think for those who have watched Dan Bongino for a fair while, and if you want to talk about American patriots and so on, I think Dan Bongino has really, put everything he's got on the line to say, I'm an American patriot. He's about justice. He's about holding government to account and squaring things up. So, I think it was probably a really good choice. If you've got somebody like he's been in the Secret Service, he's protected presidents and all that kind of thing like that. So he's proven that he's prepared to put his life on the line. So I think that that's a really great choice, and I'll be very, very keen now to see. We want to see head roll. That's what we want. We want to see the people who, over the last few years, we've heard all these stories about this one was executed in Gitmo and this one and that one and something else. Let's get the whole thing credible now, and let's see law enforcement in the US actually do its job, actually protect first and foremost the people of the United States, but also the flow-on effect should be the people of the rest of the world, because if they take down the pharmaceutical companies and the scumbag Fauci's and this other piece of filth, Bill Gates, and all the rest of them, then I think the world, first and foremost, will be a much, much safer place. And I think they need to have a very, very serious chat to the government in Switzerland about certain organisations' political immunity.
And I mean, it's been exactly 30 days since Trump was sworn in. What's your verdict so far? If you were to give him a score out of 5, what would you give him as a rating?
Yeah, no, I think so far for what we've seen, comparatively to what we've seen from the presidents, say the last 4 or 5 presidents, he would have to be at a 6.
Well,
because what we've seen from the last 4 or 5 presidents is nothing but treachery against their country. They're working for the global terrorist organisations. They've been taking down the US, and I think that things are on track to go really, really well, and see some action, because that's what in Trump's last presidency, that's what we didn't see, was actual action. And we need to see law enforcement move very fast against the mainstream media in America. All the politicians who backed the corruption, the lies, the murders, and the interference to the elections last time. So I think he's cruising pretty well, and I think we've got some pretty exciting sort of stuff to come.
And some massive news. The Epstein flight logs, the revelation of who was on those flights, all the full details apparently are scheduled to come out within the next 24 hours. That's a Trump executive order, I believe. There's also the Kennedy files. What I want to do is I want to play a short clip about the Epstein files, and I just want to get your reaction to that clip.
Yeah.
Files on your desk is. When can we see them, and what's taking so long to release them?
I do. Jesse, there are well over, this will make you sick, 200 victims. 200. So we have, well over 250 actually. So we have to make sure that their identity is protected and their personal information. But other than that, I think tomorrow, the personal information of victims. Other than that, I think tomorrow, Jesse, breaking news right now, you're going to see some Epstein information being released by my office.
What kind? Are we going to see who was on the flights? Are we going to see any evidence from what he recorded? Because he had all of his homes wired with recording devices.
Yeah. What you're going to see, hopefully tomorrow, is a lot of flight logs, a lot of names, a lot of information. But it's pretty sick what that man did.
Okay, well,
along with his co-defendant.
Absolutely, and he had help. That's for sure.
He sure did.
Thoughts on that, Wade? Do you think we'll have some big revelations coming in, or do you think it's all going to be just a nothing burger?
So we did hear last time Trump was in, we heard a lot of stuff when they were talking about, I think the term was releasing the Kraken. But this time, and we saw nothing back Trump's last term. But I think the scene is set. They've got the players in place. I think that they're bringing the crowd in and taking their seats in the auditorium. So if nothing came of this now after that hullabaloo and that much promo, if nothing came of it now, then Trump's finished. So I don't think that they could possibly afford to not roll the whole shooting match out. There's a lot of other stuff to come out as well. You talked about JFK. So, this is enormous stuff. And, a lot of people sort of say they should just get on with it. But, as you and I know, if you hit the public with too much heavy-duty, hard-hitting, confronting and challenging information in too big a shot, then it has an adverse reaction. You know what I mean? They all of a sudden want to switch off, don't want to know about things, and so on. So, I'm looking forward to hearing the results. I think that, when they talk about 200 victims, they do need to protect the identity of many of them. But by the same token, we need to know, because this is a global. This is the worst crimes globally from a cohort right now who are in the business of killing virtually everybody on the planet. So I think that we need to see some heavy-duty evidence so that the public can start to switch on to the size of what's happening, how serious it is, and that this is the last roll of the dice. If we don't get this right now and recruit enough people now, then, she's pretty well game over.
And I hear that they encountered some obstruction, I think it was from the Department of Justice and some other bureaucratic bodies, in releasing the JFK files. Apparently, they've overcome those obstructions. So the release of that will be imminent, at least within the next couple of weeks. I do have some interesting footage. You may have seen it. People in our audience may have seen it. It's from Bill Cooper. Bill Cooper obviously passed away right after 9/11. He was a prominent researcher, needs no introduction. and he apparently had uncovered the original JFK assassination video. Have you seen that?
I have not. No.
I'll play it now. So this is the original unedited one. It's very fascinating. It goes for about a minute. Oh. Let me just bring that up. Here we go.
So they ordered his execution. It was actually ordered by the policy committee of the Bilderberg Group in The Hague in Geneva, Switzerland, and was carried out by agents of the secret government in Dallas. The man who actually administered the coup de grace was the driver of the car, William Greer. We have a film in beautiful living color that you can actually see with your own eyes. William Greer turn with an assassination pistol in his left hand and shoot the president point blank in the head over his right shoulder. It's incredible. It's been hidden from the public for all these years. But the same film has been shown on television for all these years, but they've always zoomed right in on Kennedy and cut the driver out, so you can never see it. It's the Zapruder film. It was never shown to the Warren Commission. They never saw it.
So the footage is a bit grainy, but you can actually see, there he is. So you can see the driver. You can make out the shadow of the driver. Can you see that? So he's actually, and you can see a gun. He shoots him with a special gun that was specifically designed for that assassination. So I thought it was really fascinating.
Absolutely, Leon, because I've done a lot of shooting over my time, and I can tell you right now, to hit something like that at that distance, supposedly from here or there, or the grassy knoll, or the bloody book repository, moving targets, all the other obstructions, that's a very far-fetched story. I'm not saying, of course, I'm anything like a military sniper, but that's to put everything into that for that shot. It's very, very risky. So the question is, of course, why didn't Secret Service take down the driver? All that sort of stuff. So there's a lot going on. I've seen interviews from the bloke who was apparently sitting on the car after he was shot, the Secret Service agent. So there's a lot of questions here that need to be answered. A lot of what we're seeing here doesn't add up. But, there's some pretty nasty stuff that's going on. And one of the things that, and I know people have said that George Bush actually was the shooter at the time and different things. So one of the things, Leon, that I find interesting, we saw the assassination attempt against Trump where he was shot in the ear. Now, something I find odd. I don't know who they've got guarding Trump now, but with the amount of power and military at their disposal, the elites or the cabal or the deep state, whatever you're going to say, you would think that they would be able to kill anybody in the world at all, no matter how good they're protected. So I think it's interesting that no other attempts have been made on Trump, and I assume there would have been, but they haven't told us about it. But you've got, if he brings the power of the United States law and the United States military against the cabal, they're going to be there's going to be one hell of a blue. So you would think that they would have taken him out by now. So I find that curious. I'm certainly not saying that that's what should happen. I'm certainly not advocating for that at all. I think the United States at this point, from what I can see, and probably the world, needs Trump. So, the last thing we want is for anything bad to happen to him. But these are some interesting questions that I think a thinking person would ask. But anyhow, that's just a bit beside the point. But yeah, the fact that they haven't seen that footage ever just goes to show there's a lot happening, a lot of covering up happening. Whether the United States government is, and more importantly, the intelligence agencies are in it that deep, which we pretty well know they are. But that on top of Epstein and a few other things that are going to come out, I think we're looking at some incredibly interesting times.
Absolutely. Just to clarify, the driver was actually a Secret Service agent himself. And that gun was, as I said before, was specifically designed for the assassination. It wasn't a regular gun. It didn't have a regular bullet. It actually had a toxin that was released into the president's brain. And, if it wasn't for the impact, obviously the impact of the bullet itself, it blew out his brains. But the toxin itself would have been enough to kill him, even a small dosage of it.
So that was obviously a backup in case it wasn't a headshot and it was just a shoulder or an arm or something like that,
That's right. He delivered the final shot. Obviously, the president was initially shot in the throat. There's no, confirmation as to who was behind that. But the driver, who was a Secret Service agent, delivered the final blow, the second shot.
Which just, begs the question as I go back to it. Trump's still alive now. How good are these Secret Service people? When you look at the protection detail on the day when Trump was shot in the ear, you wouldn't think the American Secret Service could run a chook raffle. So, I think that was a disgrace. It was abomination. It was shocking. They should all be sacked or if not jailed. But anyway, at the end of the day, we're at the point where we are now, and I think, I hope that we actually see the things that they're doing roll out. What Trump said is going to happen actually roll out. All the information come out, and the American people, for once, can see where things are at and start to, hopefully, the whole country get behind one president, because their very lives depend on that, and I hope that they're smart enough to work that out.
And another thing, before we move on, another topic related to Trump in the United States, and this is a topic that really affects us, particularly in woke socialist Victoria. Men in women's sports, and that also relates to men in women's bathrooms. But one of the executive orders that Trump signed was to ban men out of women's sports. And he recently clashed with a governor from a blue state. I believe it was the state of Maine. I'll just play that. It's a short clip, and then we'll have a follow-up discussion on it.
Are you not going to comply with it?
I'm complying with the state and federal laws.
We are the federal law. Well, you better do it. You better do it, because you're not going to get any federal funding at all if you don't. And by the way, your population, even though it's somewhat liberal, although I did very well there, your population doesn't want men playing in women's sports. So you better comply, because otherwise you're not getting any federal funding. Every state, good. I'll see you in court. I look forward to that. That should be a real easy one. And enjoy your life after governor, because I don't think you'll be in elected politics.
So just to give some context, obviously he's clashing with her over her refusal to comply with his executive order. Now, when I look at that, I envy the United States. I wish that we would have leaders of that caliber in Australia. But what's your reaction to that video? And do you think we'll see something similar in Australia? I know that I've asked you that before, but it's a tempting question to ask.
Look, I think we've got a long way to go before Australian politicians or government gets the intestinal fortitude or the decency or the integrity to start doing that. And I would say, from my point of view, and I talk about this stuff a lot, Leon, and have done for a long, long time. If we're expecting the Australian government to come up with a similar sort of a thing, then the litmus test, as far as I'm concerned, for the government is how many Australian women are actually saying anything. How many Australian women are actually standing up and taking a position. And I constantly say, the incredible lack of Australian women is just, it's weak, it's pathetic, it's disgusting. So if Australian women are happy for their 9-year-old daughter, for example, to be in changing rooms with arguably a 35-year-old man, then I think that mothers need to have a bit of a shake-up. I think that they need to find their voice. You know, I see back, I don't know, a couple of years ago, we had, there was a group, I think, called Gays for Palestine or something like that. and I thought, do these people understand anything at all? Like, how stupid can they possibly be? So I hold that in the same level of intelligence or non-intelligence as, in particular, a mother who thinks it's okay to have some 35-year-old pedo in the same change rooms as their 9-year-old daughter. You have got to be kidding me. Not to mention fathers who should also be every bit as outraged and actually saying something. But it appears that the safety of their kids, there's a lot more important things than whether their kids are attacked by pedophiles. And that obviously is, you know, going to the footy, very important. You know, maybe going out to a restaurant for a meal, that's very important. I don't know, buying a new car, pretty up there, mate, you know. So I think that if the government is going to say, well, we've seen nothing, no one in Australia is complaining about this, then you're not going to see any changes. In fact, you're going to get worse and worse and worse. So this is one of the issues that the Australian people, especially Australian women, like, what the hell is wrong with you lot? You know, get your voice, get up and get going, get on your bike and start to fight for your kids' lives, because that's what's going on here. And I mean, we push this a lot. Billboard Battalion, we push this a lot, and really fight back against this men in women's sports, or whatever the hell you call it. Who knows how many different breeds that they're talking about being in this sport or that sport or whatever. Point being is, it's hard to narrow down now what is a woman and what's a man. But at the end of the day, I've seen some people who look like intelligent people who go, oh no, that's only fair if someone's in trans this or some other stupid crap like that. I think it's fine that they're in. No, it isn't. Get the hell out of there. Find your voice, Australian mothers and fathers. Get with the program here, because they're destroying your kids' lives and you're just doing nothing about it.
Australia is a great nation, you know, people are great, but what do you think is it about Australians? Do you think there's a cultural mindset to go along, to get along in this country?
If you look at, you know, our history, like it's been a reasonably colourful history where not everybody has got on terribly well. But having said that, the younger people of today, the parents of today, have come through a system that was, political correctness, where, you know, they've been attacked by the media, they're attacked by the universities, they're attacked by the schools, the social media now. What's happened, Leon, is they've got all these extremist left-wingers, extremist woke brigade, and they continually put them into positions of influence. So now you've got people who are not able to actually think. You've got people who are so indoctrinated with this woke, idiotic nonsense that they don't even recognise that this is a problem. They don't have the ability to be rational, to assess information, and at the very, very least, you know, I mean, they're all falling over themselves to be woker than the next one, and this is horrendous stuff. They don't have the ability to assess that and go, this is actually very dangerous. You know, we're creating a situation now with this drag queen crap in with kindergarten kids and God knows what. No, hell no, not a chance. And I mean, we see the arguments from some people that say, oh, people who are drag queens, they've got a right to be whoever they are and whatever they are and all the rest of it. So any grown man that dresses up like that and then wants to have open, free access to someone else's little kids, no way. That's not just being someone different, mate. That's get the hell out of the place. Rack off very quickly and do not come back. And I mean, very, very sadly, we've got so many people who are running the likes of libraries. There's something wrong with them where they would think that's okay and they would support that and they would facilitate that. There's something wrong with those people. The likes of the school teachers. And now, a couple of years ago, I saw some videos out of the US, and I think it may have been Texas, where parents were taking little kids to drag queens strip shows. Now, the parents need, I'm not going to say what they need but anyway,
A laboratory,
they're not,
maybe.
let's just say that. But they're not parents, they are groomers and enablers. And as a society and a community, we need to be saying this loud and clear, because that can only end very, very badly. So I think that, we need to keep on this case. We talk about it quite a lot and generally get some very good responses. We have had a couple of people who have sort of grumbled a bit and haven't been too happy about it. But I invite them to study, history, crimes, these kind of things, what's happened to people's kids, and we need to protect them. And we shouldn't leave this up to just parents. As a society, we should be protecting these kids. We should be helping parents and supporting parents to fight back, because this is shocking. And someone of our age, I'm probably a little bit older than you, but coming from a country where that was just not on, to see what's happening now, I'm telling you now, the place is crashing and burning.
We've got an election coming up, a federal election. I don't know if Albo's officially announced it, but by law, it's supposed to be as late as May. So it's right around the corner. Are you optimistic?
So from what I've heard on the grapevine, I think people are talking about May 12. But am I optimistic? I think if you look at the two-party preferred system, or actually it's the uni party, you've got bad and worse. So, I don't hold a lot of hope for our country given that result. But, I suppose we're seeing the Labor Party are taking some very, very serious steps, anti-Australian steps to destroy the country. I'm assuming that Dutton might not be quite as bad, but keep in mind that the coalition backed the government in some of the most horrendous bills to pass the federal parliament. And that's only recently. The under 16 identification bill, that is a catastrophe for everybody in the country, as is these hate laws, hate thing, whatever they're going on about that, there's hate stuff. And I think for a couple of reasons, the under 16 stuff will make everybody require some kind of identification to get on the computer. Doesn't matter, because you either have to prove you're over 16 or under 16. So, I mean, the stupid people that supported that is beyond belief. That we saw the digital identification pass. That, again, is all part of this particular stuff. And when we've seen this hate stuff happening, we've seen some of the politicians abstain. And if you look at the arguments for it, and the old, exactly what they did with COVID, they created a problem and then supposedly came up with the solution. Now, in all the ruckus and the disasters and the shocking things that are happening in Australia now, the government, with their immigration policies and other left-wing policies that stop anyone from saying anything about anything, the government has caused the problem. And you would have to say, given what they've now used it for, that was a deliberately caused problem. So, and as I say all the time, Billboard Battalion, we're all for immigration, but you've got to be a little bit more intelligent about who and what and where and how many and when and the rest of it. So, and when you talk about mandatory sentencing, that's fraught with danger. That's the next best thing to capital punishment. But the whole issue is that the laws around this so-called hate could easily be adapted to you and me and anybody on the street.
Mm.
They've put in place the major thing now, so that could easily be adapted to anything or anybody for any reason that the government wants to do.
And we're facing, I mean, look, the coalition isn't that great, so back from bad to worse with Labor. The left is really an existential threat to this country, as you've alluded to before, and we've really got an option. It's either going to be the coalition or a Labor minority government in alliance with the Greens. And I think that would be an absolute disaster. That could spell the end of this country. I don't think Australia could recover from a minority government with a Labor Greens coalition. What are your thoughts on that type of scenario?
Well, you'd have to chuck the Teals in amongst that mix too, because they're virtually Greens in drag. And the Greens are just, like I think these days, the Greens have been such an absolute abysmal disaster. I would suggest we wouldn't call them the Greens anymore. We just call them the Mouldies, because they're sort of gone mouldy, just a dirty black half-looking green colour thing. And I mean, the point for saying that is back when old Bob Brown was chugging down a bit of hooch and, carrying on about the Franklin River Dam and all the rest of it, I think that they actually had really an ideology that cared for the actual environment and cared for the country, irrespective of what that looked like. But nowadays, exactly the same as we saw with the Democrats. They went from keeping the bastards honest to just becoming one of the bastards. And at the end of the, you look at Cheryl Kernow's last time there, and just trying to think of the other girl who was Natasha Stott Despoja. They just turned into just screaming lefties. That's all they were. So we're at a point now where anybody who actually does care about the environment, the Greens are selling you out. All right? They are torpedoing you and our country. Now, I back this up, Leon. As you know, Billboard Battalion is heavily involved in the fight against this so-called renewable energy. It's a catastrophe, a disaster. Having said that, you look around Australia now, and wherever these installations are to be put in, any kind of environmental protection just goes straight out the window. It's gone. They can do whatever they want to do. And, they can stick them out in the sea. They can put them anywhere. They can put them on land. You see huge areas of solar panels. The transmission lines are just programmed to just be smashed through wherever it is that they want to put them. They don't care about environment. They don't care about farmers. They don't care about communities. And, the one of the main things is where they want to put in Queensland a lot of these wind turbines, old growth forest, places that are virtually haven't been disturbed. They're going in there with dozers, excavators and dynamite, and they're just blowing the top off mountains. So, don't tell us that you scum parasites in the greens care about the environment, because you do not. You are liars, and you are on the take. Adam Bant and the rest of these lowlifes should be jailed forever, because they're just selling our country out, Leon. So you got to wonder, is Adam Bant on the take? What have they got over him? I don't know. The rest of the Greens, they're not Greens, mate. If you want to look at the real Greens, I think you look at the farmers. Our Australian farmers care about the environment, and we do more to protect the environment than these lowlifes ever will. And then they talk about all this renewable infrastructure being supposedly clean and green. They're idiots. They're liars, because the carbon footprint of all this stuff is a nightmare. A lot of it, you can't recycle it. You can't dispose of it. The best they can do is dig a hole in the ground and fill it up with massive, huge dumps of these wind turbines. Once the solar panels fall apart or they're no longer useful, they can't recycle them, or virtually nothing. So this is a disaster. So I think the Greens, along with the Labor Party and most likely the coalition, should be locked up forever. And I think we should get a whole new group of people to come into the government, one that's based on integrity and honesty and transparency.
I would say that not only the Greens do not care about the environment at all, they're ignoring it, but they think they have an obsession with Israel and Gaza. And that's, if you look at their policies, it appears that at least 60 to 70% of what they talk about is a situation in Gaza. So nothing to do with Australia, a situation that really doesn't directly impact Australia, which is ironic considering that they were originally set up as an environmentalist party and now they're a pro-Hamas party.
I think that goes to show the level of infiltration and from the likes of deep state, et cetera, who now have got into the universities and into all these things. They brainwash a lot of these poor stupid fools into not caring about the reality. They're caring about the issues that they're indoctrinated to care about and to push and to be involved with. So, the whole thing needs a massive, great shake-up. It'll be interesting to see what Trump does in the next 12 months in the universities and educational facilities over there, because I can absolutely tell you what I think needs to happen here in Australia. And if I was in government, mate, I'll tell you what, the shake-up that I'd bring into Australia would make Trump look like just an amateur. And I must say, I say this with it's serious, but a little bit of not sure how to put it exactly, but we got in strife with a page called Ringers from the Top End, because we were putting up things that were very serious and very, very connected to the agricultural sector and particularly the top end of Australian sector. And it's interesting to see that I ended up in a discussion with the bloke that runs it, set it up and runs it. And one of the blokes he knows, I don't know, maybe one of his mates, I'm not sure what's going on. But anyway, I think they've pretty well banned Billboard Battalion from putting anything up on Ringers from the Top End. But I wanted to have a look at something here that was put up on that by a contributor, apparently top contributor by the name of Luke Harris. And I believe Luke Harris runs Harris Farms over at Albury and a few other places, which is a fresh food place where they sell fresh food and veggies and so on. And I just can't find the date just at the minute. It doesn't matter. Maybe a year ago or something. And Luke Harris certainly threw a fair few expletives at me, rather disgusting stuff on social media. But here he says on Ringers from the Top End, he said, he's talking about me. He says, the Donald Trump of Australia. Farmers, this bloke is stop lying to us for your own personal gain, mate. So I don't know whether to take that as a badge of honour or what's going on, but that's Luke Harris, his description of Farmer Wade and Billboard Battalion.
Donald Trump of Australia.
Yeah, I don't know. We printed it out because it was quite funny. I don't know whether you'll be able to see that, but we printed it out. So, and I think that might still be floating around on a group called Ringers from the Top End, which is this lot here.
Over 300,000 members.
Yeah. So anyway, we ran into the bloke who runs it up at Beef Week in Rockhampton. We were up there last April, and he wasn't too happy with some of the things that I put on, and he was even less happy because quite a lot of people supported the stuff I put on, and then he was even less happy with the fact that I called him out and started to call out him and also some of the admins and say what's going on here. You know what Billboard Battalion is talking about is the ringers from the top end being wiped out, the red meat industry being wiped out. And anyway, so they told me that, you know, on ringers from top end, you've got to be respectful. You've got to be nice and, you know, don't cause any trouble and don't hang it on anyone else. So Luke Harris says, the Donald Trump of Australia. Farmers, this bloke is stop lying to us for your own personal gain, mate. So apparently I'm lying to the farmers. Anyway, I'd like to have that discussion. I'd invite Luke Harris to come on Billboard Battalion and let's have that discussion. No problem at all, mate. But anyway, and then just below that, there's a comment from Wayne Goodman that says, Luke Harris, do you see what's happening overseas with the farmers? And that was back at the time when they were, you know, having massive problems over in Europe, which they still are. So it's interesting, some of the stuff. So I'm officially, apparently, the Donald Trump of Australia. Anyway, I'll probably wear that as a badge of honour and say, well, Luke, what do you got to say, mate? What are you doing about the country, about all the stuff that's going wrong? Be interesting to see.
On a serious note, you're not running at the moment in this coming election, are you?
No.
Are you? No. Do you have any plans in the near future to run in any future election, state or federal?
Well, and I've been asked this question a lot, and I get political parties and so on all the time ask me to run in the elections, and I think that I can do more good for our country, Leon, doing what we're doing, holding politicians to account, and educating the public on what's actually happening. I can see if I say, for example, was a senator, you would have an opportunity to speak about things. You would have an opportunity to vote about things. But I mean, the biggest thing I think if you got elected as a politician is having the ability to say something with parliamentary privilege. And I'm quite surprised that a lot more of that doesn't happen. But I think, if we have an election this year, so the next one is going to be 3 years later, you may not even have elections in another 3 years. So I think we really need to stick to our guns, to what we're doing. We're starting to have impacts in the agricultural sector, which is where I that's the best idea for my what I do. And we're starting to see now, we're getting stuck into the likes of the National Farmers Federation very heavily. We're actually starting to see, we're at a national party. I know that's hard to believe, but Billboard Battalion went to a national party meet the public, meet the candidates kind of meeting in Birchip in Victoria here a few days ago. I think it might have been last weekend, last Sunday perhaps. And anyway, one of the questions who I asked the National Party members who were there was Dr. Ann Webster, the federal member for Mallee, and also was the other one was think of it a second, just need a blank there. So Ann Webster, I asked her a few questions, and one of the questions was about the National Farmers Federation, and she started off her reply by saying, well, they're a separate entity, they're their own entity, you know what I mean? So she's distanced herself from that pretty fast. And then I talked about how they're just rubber stamping all this renewable energy rubbish that is attacking farmers. So she had a bit of a go at the NFF, and then she also had a real big go at the immediate just retired CEO of the NFF. There's a bloke by the name of Tony Mars. And I'm just going to double check that. Anyway, so at the end of the day, the bloke who was the immediate past CEO of NFF, supposedly fighting for farmers against this renewable stuff, has just been given a job as as I understand it, the Australian Commissioner in charge of renewable infrastructure. Now, if you don't see a massive conflict of interest in that, I'll go he. So anyway, I was a bit, because we hammer this, and NFF and Tony Marr, we hammer this a lot and say there's stuff here is wrong. This is just wrong. Everything's going bad. And it was interesting to see that Ann Webster made some comments that, from memory now, I think she said she's had a bit of a discussion with Tony Marr about this. And I think she said his strategy was, in terms of not representing farmers properly, he'll have some meetings. I think that's what she said, and don't quote me on that because I can't remember 100% exactly what word perfect. But then she also went on to say, if we win government, this is the coalition, if the coalition wins government, then Tony Marr's position might dry up fairly fast. So I think that's a very, very interesting thing. And, I think that's a lot of the work that Billboard Battalion have been doing might be starting to actually get some results.
That's excellent. And Wade, before we wrap up, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience tonight? I'll give you the floor.
So we've had some wins. Billboard Battalion was across in the Kiewa Valley here in Victoria last Tuesday. We were asked to go over there by Stand in the Park in Albury by Chick Fenton to support the community, because the Shire Council, the Alpine Shire Council, was actually conducting a council meeting, a general normal council meeting, where they in fact were going to have a vote on whether the Alpine Shire Council would support the building of what they call a BESS, battery energy storage system, at Dedering, which is not far from where the meeting was being held at Mount Beauty. So we went across there and we met up with some of the local people, Sharon and John there, and Kevin, and they showed us where the site was going to be. This thing is horrendous. I mean, it's in the hilly country. It's in the Kiewa Valley. If this thing ever caught fire, then I've been I've been a firefighter since I was 15. I can tell you now I've been ex CFA brigade captain. I've done a fair bit of stuff in that field. The way the thing's set up, the toxic fumes coming out of a fire like that would last for a long, long time. It wouldn't vent, it wouldn't clear. And then there's also the bush that's immediately on top of it, and dry land, farmland around it. So it's a
perfect storm.
and You just wouldn't do it do it in a heartbeat. Anyway, good news is that about 250 people attended the council meeting at Mount Beauty, and the Alpine Shire Council voted against supporting this new BESS. So that was a fantastic win for common sense and for just what's right, for democracy, and for a council actually looking after its community. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that the minister, I think it's D'Ambrosio, she can just do it anyway. But I don't think that Lily would be that stupid to go against such enormous community backlash. But then they might be, because as we know, they're not in the business of caring for communities. They're in the business of getting this thing rolled out so it wrecks communities. But so, they would not have asked for the council's support if it didn't mean anything. So I think we've got some really interesting stuff here. We're seeing some terrific wins for communities. We've got a lot of transmission lines happening out west here, so we're hoping to have big wins there. But the most important thing that we also need to argue is that we need to get coal-fired power stations back in the system. Because if a lot of community backlash happens and then the government says, well, you people stopped us from putting in the renewable energy infrastructure, so now Australia's got no energy because of you, they need to be so careful of this, and we need to actually fight on those grounds and make sure that the other half of the argument is this climate change is all crap and we need coal-fired baseload power. So get back in the game right now of building coal-fired baseload power generators.
Now, Wade, you can be found on Facebook, on X, on Rumble. So I'll post the links in the description below. There's also your website as well, which I'll post a link to. Have I missed anything? Where else can people find you?
We do have some stuff on TikTok. There's different bits and pieces sort of get shared around from other people. They share them onto different platforms and so on. But no, I think you're onto that there. There's actually, there's another couple as well. So I think that we'll probably put this up. We'll put up the links to this after you've done this here, Leon. Like we're also on Rural Rebel. They run our stuff pretty well. They do a good job. So yeah, there's a number of things that people need to look for. But anyway, we're really, really great to see that people are looking for it and want the content, and they want to know what's happening. And as the same as you, Leon, we shoot about as straight as it gets. There's no 80% of stuff here. It's all 100%. So, and as we're learning more and more, that's what people want.
So everyone, I'm sure a lot of you already do this. You already follow Wade, but please follow Wade and the Billboard Battalion. Like and share his work. Donate to his cause if there's an option to donate. There is, I'm assuming. Yep. Yeah. No, there's options there to donate by all means, and we rely so heavily on public donations to operate. And as I always say, Leon, it's not just me. We've got a team here, Nick and Belinda, also tireless workers, for Billboard Battalion. Just such dedication, and nothing's a problem. The effort that goes into it is incredible. And, we have a lot of supporters around the place who, we just absolutely love that. And, we love trying to fight for our country in a real sense, exactly the same as you do, Leon. Wade, it was such an honor, as always, to have you on the podcast. I'd really love to have you back on again for another discussion really soon.
Absolutely, Leon. It'll be my pleasure, mate. It'll be terrific.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for watching, and God bless. Have a good evening.
But wait, can you hear our children crying? They're calling from all over this land. They're glaring at today's page.